So this is our red earthen clay, very similar to what the Native Americans would use. What we're going to do is you're going to take your section of clay, and we're going to use our Hulk hands, as I tell my kids, and we're going to kind of tear off a section. You want one section bigger and one section smaller. We're going to use this a little bit later for some other things. This one right here, our larger piece, we're going to squish it as if you would do for Play-Doh, and we're going to mold it into a ball. It does not have to be a perfect ball, but we're going to kind of roll it around in our hands, turning it into a ball. Okay, I'm going to show you how we're going to make what's called a pinch pot. This is kind of more of a modern way of making a pinch pot. We will be adding things to it the way Native Americans did. Most of Native Americans would create their pottery using coils, which I'm going to show you guys how to do here in a little bit. But I believe that some of them, kind of based on what I've read, did the pinch pot, maybe not necessarily here in our area, but different parts of the United States and other early civilizations throughout the world would also do a pinch pot. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our ball of clay and we're going to put it in the hand that we do not write with. Okay, then we are going to insert our thumb into this ball to make a kind of hole for it. And the best way to do it so you get the most pressure and force to be able to do this is we're going to take our fingers and we're going to put them underneath our other hand, and we're going to take our thumb, okay, and then we're just going to end up squeezing them together. And I'm only going to stick my thumb in to about my first knuckle, okay? So I'm going to stick it in there. It's going to be more flat like that, and that's okay, but I've only stuck it in that far, okay? You can see now that I have an indentation. If our ball had been a little bit taller, I might have been able to poke it straight in, but this typically works, okay? So in order to make this a pinch pot, we're going to begin pinching it. But we're not going to be pinching it with just our finger and thumb. We're going to actually be using all 4 fingers and our thumb. And I kind of like to refer to it as a quack mouth. Okay. So when we start doing this, I'm not going to just pinch up here at the top. I'm going to pinch down here at the bottom as well. One thing that you can do to help you with this is do not rely on your eyes. Rely on your hands. So sometimes when I do this with my students, I have them not even look at the pot or I have them close their eyes so they can trust how the clay feels in their hand. So if you close your eyes, you can kind of put your thumb in and you can kind of take your fingers and you can feel that there are parts of your clay that feel a little thinner and then parts that feel a little thicker. Okay, those thicker parts we're going to gently squeeze and pinch. So when I do this, I've got my thumb back inside that hole. And I'm not going to start up here at the top. I'm going to come down here at the bottom. Any place where I feel that it's thick, I'm just going to give it a gentle squeeze. And then I'm going to turn my fingers and my thumb and I'm going to squeeze. And I'm going to do this as I turn the pot or the bowl in my hands and I'm feeling for those parts that feel thick. Notice I'm still down here at the bottom of my pinch pot and I'm just doing this. You can see that my opening is starting to get a little bigger. Okay. So I'm continuing to pinch. I don't want to pinch so hard that I pinch a hole into my pinch pot, but now I can get both thumbs in there and I can actually work with both hands, okay? Feels like down here at the bottom of my bowl, it's starting to get about right. It's not too thick, not too thin. So now I'm going to start coming up here to the sides of my bowl and I'm going to start doing the same process. So I'm just going to pinch or squeeze and I'm going to continue to turn it. Okay, I can see that the lip or the edge of my bowl is starting to get thinner than what it was. The opening is bigger. Okay, if you've got some cracking, that's okay. I'm going to show you how to do a trick with that. Okay, and I'm going to continue to move my hands, feeling for places that feel too thick and some that feel too thin. If they are getting thin, I'm not going to squeeze those. I'm going to pass right over them. If I've got some cracking or some splitting, I can actually take the pieces and squish them together and I can kind of squeeze those together and kind of smooth them out with my hands. Okay. All right. So I'm feeling pretty good. The edges of my bowl are about the same thickness. I've got a nice open space. Okay. The one thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my bowl and I'm just going to set it on my table because it still kind of wobbles a lot. So I'm going to take a finger or maybe 2 and I'm just going to push down in the center there, kind of flatten it out so that I've got a flatter surface for my bowl to sit. Okay, so if you've got some cracking like this, You can kind of take the clay and kind of squeeze it together. You can smooth it together with your finger. Anytime you're pressing on it, you want to give your other hand a place to support the clay so you don't squish it too far one direction. Okay. Another thing that you can also do is I've given you guys these little bowls and your teacher's going to put a little bit of water in them. You can use a little bit of water. We never want to put the bowl or the clay in the water. That is too much water. But you can take just your fingertip here and you can do that and you can smooth out any imperfections, any lines that you have on your clay to kind of smooth it out. There are some cultures that when they use clay, they have these different paddles that they would use to kind of smack the clay, if you will, and it kind of smooth things out and they kind of run them back and forth. They're usually for very large pieces of pottery, like big bowls or vases or things like that. There are some cultures still in China that use this as well. They don't have pottery wheels, something that spins the clay around. They still do a lot of hand building with that. Okay, so one thing that's a nice pottery term for you while you're making your bowl is this is a vessel. A lot of pottery artists refer to something that holds something else, whether it be a vase, a bowl, a cup, a mug, anything like that. They are called vessels because they hold something. If they've got a lid, they are a lidded vessel. Okay. So I've kind of smoothed things over here, feeling pretty good. You can even turn your bowl over and do a little bit of smoothing on the outside. Don't have to go crazy with it. A little bit of water is going to go a long way. It's going to feel slimy, and that's okay. That slime is actually a good thing for a lot of potters. They call that slip. We're going to do that here in a second because we are going to be sticking some clay together. If you try to stick clay together without a little bit of water, it may stick at first, but as it dries, it will most likely fall apart. Okay, it's kind of like trying to stick two pieces of paper together without glue. Just doesn't really work. So you really can't stick clay together without that water, that slip. Okay, so there's my bowl. Feeling pretty good about that. Got a nice shape, pretty smooth. I don't have any big cracks or anything like that, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. You're gonna notice your clay, if you've used a lot of water, is kind of sticky. That's okay. We're gonna set that off to the side. Now, like what I said earlier, Native Americans a lot of times would build their bowls and plates and things like that with coils. So we're gonna add on a coil or two to ours. The reason we didn't build our bowl out of coils is because that's kind of a tricky process. So a coil sounds pretty easy when you see it, but it's actually kind of tricky to do. So my other piece of clay here, I'm gonna just pinch off a section about the size of like a big grape or maybe a big olive or something like that, okay? I'm gonna squish it into a ball and I can even roll it around in my hands. So I've got a ball shape there. Now we're gonna make what's called a coil. A coil is like a snake-like shape, okay? So I'm gonna take it in my hands and I'm gonna roll it back and forth, kind of doing that. If it starts to feel like it's kind of flopping back and forth, you can take your hand and kind of squeeze that shape out. You can also take the coil and lay it on there and you can roll it back and forth across your hand. Imagine if you were trying to make a snake out of Play-Doh. What would you do to do that? Okay, so I've got a coil here. We don't want to get it too much thinner than this because you can see it's already starting to crack. If that happens, you can take a little bit of water and you can smooth it out that way. Okay. All right. So I've got that. I'm going to take my pinch pot here and I'm going to put some water along the top edge of my bowl. Okay. Make it kind of nice and wet. Then I'm going to take my coil here and I'm going to place it on top and I'm going to gently squeeze it as I wrap it around. Okay. Some of your coils may be long enough to go the full length. Some of them won't, and that's okay. Okay, just press it down. You don't want to squish it, but we're just kind of pressing it so it's going to stay. I need a little bit more for this one, so I'm going to pinch off a little bit more, and I'll make another coil. I'm going to try to make it about the same size. That's pretty close, maybe a little thin. And then I can add that on. And if I get too much, I can just pinch it off. Okay. You can take a little bit of water and I can smooth that out so it looks like one continuous coil, okay? But what you don't want to do is you don't want to completely smooth everything out. You still want to be able to see that coil at the top of your bowl, okay? If you would like to add another one, you can do another one. It's kind of that same process. Depends on if this was easy for you, try another one. If that was tricky for you, just stick with one. It's your choice. I'm gonna try and make this one a little longer. Let's see if I can get it. Okay, feeling pretty good. Let's see if I got it, okay? Add on that water. Okay, like so. Oh, I almost got it. So close. Saw just a little bit there. One thing you want to be careful of when you're doing coils is that when you put them on there that they don't either start building out or they start rolling in. I'm going to try to get them right on top if you can. Like I said, anytime you try to smooth, use your other hand to kind of hold things in place so they don't squish on you. Okay? All right, I am feeling pretty good about my bowl. Okay? All right, if you have extra clay left over, your teacher can either collect it, or if you've got enough time and you want to build something else, you can. You can try to make another pinch pot, maybe add a little handle to it, make a little cup if you would like to. You can build anything else that you would like with them. You can keep building coils. If you keep building coils, you can make it much taller than it is. I think I'm going to add some more coils. Okay, one more thing that I've got for you is I'm sending in these little sticks here. These are actually the sticks that you use for scratch art. These are old ones. I've had them in my classroom for a long time, but they are great for adding some details to your clay. My students use them to write their initials on, their names on them, which we will do at the end. Okay, but on your pottery, another thing that a lot of the Native Americans would do would be to kind of draw on them or carve into them some different designs. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Okay, let me add on this last little bit here. Okay. Feeling good about that. Okay. So, if your clay bowl is feeling pretty soft, like you could just kind of squish it at any moment, you may not want to do any designs, okay? But let me show you guys what you can do if you would like to do designs, okay? We're gonna have to pick up our bowl, okay? We're gonna turn it on its side here on our fabric, but I'm gonna kind of hold it in place up here with my hand. I can always reshape it, but you can take the point of your stick and don't poke it into the clay, but we're just gonna drag it across, and you can do some different designs. A lot of Native American designs are very simple and geometric, so like zigzags, straight lines, dotted lines, not very many spirals because they kind of, it's tricky sometimes to kind of do a curved line that goes around. They might be able to do a gentle wavy line across their clay. Okay, but as I turn it, I'm still taking my other hand here and I'm holding it because I don't want it to collapse and I don't want things to fall off. But I'm just kind of gently turning it around, and I'm using my stick here, and I'm just gonna do a zigzag line. I gotta think about where I'm at when I get close here. Ugh. Get close there. Okay, so I've just done a simple zigzag line. That's totally fine. I am happy with that. You can add in some holes if you want, but just kind of do little ones. Maybe I'll add in a little dot to every other one. Like I said, you can make your design simple, add a few more elements to make it a little bit more complex. Your choice, okay? I'm noticing my coil here is falling apart on me. Okay, the last thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take your pinch pot And you're gonna carefully turn it over, just like that, so I'm at the bottom. And just like what we did for our lines around the edge of our pot, we're gonna do the same thing on the bottom for our initials. Your initials are the first letter of your first name and the first letter of your last name. If you have 2 students in your class that have the same initials, then you might want to include your middle initials. So you would end up with 3 letters, okay? My first name is Katie, so I'm going to take my stick here and I'm going to just gently pull it across to make a K. And then my last name is Montague, so I'm going to do an M for Montague. And there is my Native American coil pinch pot.